Bear with me because this requires explanation. Paul Krugman, you may not know him, but he's the biggest joke on the New York Times comics page, except the Times calls them op-eds. In his latest spoof, he claims that Biden will be, quote, the first modern president trying to govern in the face of an opposition that refuses to accept his legitimacy. Good one. Except first, Biden is about as modern as a poodle skirt. And second, the current president has had to fight for 4 years against an opposition of elites, often using a very familiar word. Krugman apparently doesn't recall any of this. Right, Hillary?
He knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did.
You were one of them. She's not alone, though. Remember this clown?
He was legally elected, but the Russian weighing in on the election, the Russian attempt to have the election, and frankly, the FBI's weighing in on the election, I think makes his election illegitimate.
That's two. And I wonder how Joe feels about this.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind. That's it.
Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Yes, he does. And who can forget those boycotting the inauguration, which was meant to underscore the illegitimacy? And then there's Krugman's own words in a tweet questioning Trump's legitimacy. And that's one of many. So how does he forget all that? Was it a head injury, one caused from reading his own columns? Or maybe after using every single hoax and racial smear against Trump and his supporters, he and the Times just erased all memory of it, maybe with help from these guys.
We call it the neuralizer. Keep it simple, Slick.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Agent K. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, look right here.
That's my explanation. Perhaps in order to maintain a comical delusion so well documented, their only recourse is denial. It never happened. Krugman's lucky his employer will indulge his madness because it gets clicks. And their constant drumbeat of illegitimacy created a moral imperative for Trump's removal by any means necessary. 25th Amendment, impeachment, election fraud, which is why America sees the media for what they are. What's the word? Oh, yeah, illegitimate. So, Dana, is it a prerequisite for the media just to forget everything you've ever done? Because if you did, you would just be a hypocrite every single day.
That way you could keep just writing.
Yes.
Just keep writing and keep writing.
How did his editors not see this? But then they did a secret edit.
That's right. They went in and they tried to fix it a little bit.
Yes.
Because they were realizing that it was just, it's preposterous to not even remember this. I mean, the simplest of Google searches would have shown that, but also pretty audacious to write it anyway. Because if you remember, President Trump was actually dealing with calls for impeachment before his own inauguration.
Yes.
And the other thing is the resistance, obviously. Look, I know that President Obama in his book, and he's talked about it before, he believes that he was always blocked. The obstructionist Republicans, they were terrible. And then after the recount in 2000, I mean, that was pretty hard. You had some people, especially judges, saying that he wasn't legitimate president either. So there's some precedence for this. But in this case, it is so well documented that everyone said, do not help. Do not help the president. Do not work with him. Do not do anything. Don't even help him with the COVID relief bill that Americans really need right now. The other thing I would mention is there's this push to say that Republicans should just get behind Joe Biden and confirm all of his nominees. And let me give you this example. President Trump had 128 nominees of his. The Democrats asked for a cloture vote. Basically, that meant we're just going to sit on this. We're going to delay it and delay it and delay it. That basically, all of them ended up with 90 votes or more. Under Obama, only 12. So think about that, the scale of it. 128 nominees held back. Under Obama, it was 12. So when it is said that there was obstructionism in the Obama years, I get it. They think that. But the scale of it, the data, proves it was much worse for Trump.
It's enough to make you want to swear, doesn't it, Dana?
I am on my best behavior today. Thank you for having me back.
Yes.
America.
So, Jesse,
yes,
what are your thoughts on this blockbuster monologue?
You know why I don't like fact-checking Democrats, Greg?
Why?
It leaves me less time for I told you so's and whataboutism. And I wanted to add to your well-researched monologue here. In just 15 minutes, I found other people that called Trump illegitimate. Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Jimmy Carter, Stacey Abrams, Tom Arnold, the New York Times, Washington Post, New York Magazine, and Salon columnist. Now, that was only in 15 minutes. Johnny, my assistant, wasn't here. I would have found a lot more, but I actually had to research it myself. The title of the column was intriguing to me. How will Biden deal with Republican sabotage?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Juan. Let's make a deal. Want to make a deal?
Why not?
Okay. All the things that Democrats did to Donald Trump, you defended. You said were perfectly legitimate. So, therefore, all the things that Republicans can do to Biden, equally defensible if they do the same thing. So, Republicans can send SWAT teams on pre-dawn raids into his associates' homes.
What? Oh.
They could impeach him in an election year. They can leak anonymous fake news quotes about him.
Oh, yeah.
They could have prosecutors investigate his charity, his family business. They could boycott his inauguration. They could do all of these horribly ugly things that they did to Donald Trump. They could just do them to Joe Biden, and that would be perfectly fair under this deal we're making. Do we have a deal?
We have no deal.
But you defended all the things they did against Trump. Why can't those things be done against Biden?
Let me get this straight. So, in other words, you have no precursor in terms of Russian interference.
Well, here's
None
the
of that.
precursor.
Okay.
It's China. And we
Okay.
have that
Oh, I
laptop from hell.
I see.
And if you watched all of the
Yeah.
hearings of the fraud allegations today, you know that those aren't baseless allegations anymore, Juan.
I see.
So there's more than enough to go on at this point.
Well, I tell you, I hope that Dana's language is in advance, because I could use it at the moment. I tell you that, because that was a blank load right there. But I got to say, I mean, I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm thinking, boy, whataboutisms that you mentioned, Jesse. Because, you know, whataboutism is a rhetorical trick that you use when you don't want to talk about the real issue on the table for the day.
What's the real
And I
issue?
see three people saying, oh, you know, what about the Democrats when they said this with regard to Russian
called
interference
context.
or whatever? But you don't want to address the real issue. And to me, the real issue is that Trump keeps claiming that this election is somehow illegitimate and fraudulent, that something was wrong with this election. But he has no evidence of it. And today, his Attorney General, Bill Barr, came out and said, there's nothing wrong with this. We have no evidence of any fraudulent misconduct that would change the outcome
Did you watch
of
the
this
hearings
election.
today?
This is what, let me finish. So
Did
this
you
is
watch
what
them?
Bill Barr, the Attorney General, who is a total Trump loyalist, said today. Now, Trump is also attacking Georgia Governor Kemp. He's attacking Georgia Governor Ducey of Arizona, so Georgia and Arizona, just because they said we had legitimate, real elections and you lost, Donald Trump.
He's not attacking
and there's
anybody.
no
He's
issue.
criticizing him, which is what
correct.
Trump does.
He's attacking them. And
Oh
you know
my
what?
God.
This is dangerous. It's dangerous to engage in this whataboutism because
It's
people
illegitimate.
lose faith in
Yes,
democracy.
like the democracy
No.
under Trump, because you
Yeah,
called
well,
it
democracy
illegitimate.
under the Russians. But I'm just saying you have a
You're
problem.
such a hypocrite. You
That's
just
not
did
a
what you-
hypocrite.
Well-
Did the Russians help Joe Biden?
You undermine the
I see.
presidency.
No, you don't want to ignore certain things and
No,
engage in
believe
whataboutism.
me.
Like Democrats don't want to talk about, don't want Republicans or conservatives to engage in whataboutism because it reminds them of all of the things that they have been doing for 4 years. Now, look, in politics, there are two tracks here. There are these grassroots political movements that oppose the current occupant of the White House. We saw that under President Obama with the Tea Party. We saw that immediately when President Trump took office with the Women's March, et cetera. But the other problem that we see, which we did not see in previous administrations, is the weaponization of government against a political campaign. And that is what this resistance was all about. It wasn't just about, resistance on Capitol Hill, opposing President Trump's agenda. It was about using the government,
SWAT
whether it
teams.
was Adam Schiff,
teams,
whether
Juan.
it was the FBI,
SWAT teams with
abusing their power.
weapons.
And today, the other news with Bill Barr is that he has now upgraded the Durham investigation to a special counsel investigation because he thinks it's so important to look at the weaponization of government that it should extend into another administration and protect him from being fired. Now, whataboutism? Will someone like Joe Biden or all of these Democrats like Adam Schiff, who demanded that President Trump protect special counsel Robert Mueller, afford John Durham the same when it comes to this investigation? That's to be seen. But the issues against Trump were far more serious in terms of not just basic political opposition. It was embedded, ingrained opposition through different government agencies, and that is a problem. And people broke the law to do it, by the way.
There you go. All right, we got to move on. By the way, whataboutism is actually a viable debate. For your sake.
Yeah, to hide from the real issue.
And analogies. Don't forget about analogies.